Welcome back to the Gospel Sports Truth Podcast. We are here with your Wednesday weekly recap. Kind of a little bit of barbershop talk about the week that was, touching a little bit on the NFL as well as college ball and anything else involving sports that kind of stood out to us. I am your host, Zay, along with my co-host, the Fantasy Nostradamus, Young Vander. Holla at the people, Young Vander.
What's going on out there?
And my guy, BK Wins. Holla at the people, BK.
Hey, y'all.
All right, so a lot of stuff went down this past week. We'll kick it off with the NFL. There were some games that had a lot going on. The Dolphins got whooped, but more importantly, their quarterback is now possibly out for a while. He got put on IR. We don't exactly know how long that IR will be, a minimum of a month. But, man, what are the Dolphins going to do over the next month, if not longer? And should Tua retire? Like, how are we feeling about the Dolphins and Tua at this point?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a crushing blow to the Dolphins. But more importantly, I'm genuinely concerned for Tua and his health, right? He has a concussion history. For me, it's always the player first. It's a person with family and so forth. And, you know, he has a history of concussions. He almost retired, or at least was talking about it when he had the second of two concussions back to back. We know the damage that the concussions will have as you progress through life. His quality of life is far more important than football. Just really concerned. From a Dolphin standpoint, that'll take care of itself. But it's interesting to me that opposing coaches normally don't comment on this, but Peterson and Antonio Pierce both commented that they think he should retire and would recommend that if he was coaching them. You normally don't hear that. I thought that was telling.
No, absolutely. I think this is one of those rare occasions where the NFL should step in and tell him you're no longer welcome here. You know what I'm saying? If you remember back in the day, or a few years back, I would say several years back, wide receiver Austin Collie from the Indianapolis Colts was having concussions back to back to a point that it was like, you know, you have another one of these, this can be not only career ending, but, you know, life. And why would, I mean, just think about it. Who want to watch a game and see someone actually die on the field this time, right? We've seen one guy had a heart attack and was able to be revived, and now he's continuing his career. But in this situation, the NFL will probably get a black eye if this guy was to continue playing and go out there and happen to actually die on the field. That would be, I think that would cause a lot of, talk. So I agree with BK, man. I'm more concerned about the player than the actual game itself at this point. And I think it's time for him to just take this new contract he got, whatever, and just step away.
Completely agree. You just signed a contract with $167 million guaranteed. What are we doing? Like you got 167 million reasons to walk away with a smile on your face. You made it to the league. You showed up in the league. Like you're not winning a Super Bowl with this team, and the team isn't going to get that much better to whereas you're going to compete with the Mahomes of the world in the next few years, and a few more concussions. And I mean, I don't even know if he can avoid CTE at this point. Like with the amount of he has, I want to say 4 documented concussions. How many times has he gotten dinged up and didn't say anything because he wasn't laid out on the field, but he was seeing stars?
Right.
Well, it's funny you said that because it was plays before the quarterback sneak where they said they think that's when the concussion actually happened. So it wasn't even a quarterback sneak with people thinking the concussion actually happened. So he's out there playing probably concussed at the time. So like you said, documented concussions. Back in my day, it was called getting your bell rung. Right. You didn't know you had a concussion. You were still playing. You seen some stars. You got some Gatorade and you was back on the field. You know what I mean? So I think it's just time.
And one of the things they struggle with, right, and this is going more towards back in the day, but still, I think it's prevalent in the game today. The average NFL career is 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a very finite time where you're able to play this game at a pro level. And the biggest issue is there's always, they talk about next man up, right? And so the question is, in years past, players would play through injury or not disclose injury because they didn't want to lose their job. And so there's still an old school element, despite all these new medical findings and all that, and the dangers that come with specifically head injuries. If I sit out, who's the next Tom Brady to replace Drew Bledsoe or whatever position that is? So I think that's also in the back of players' minds. Hey, if I don't play through this or I let someone know, this could be it.
I mean, I get that, but again, 167 million reasons why that thought should not. The last thing I would want is to have all that money and not even remember when I made it. Like what are we doing?
Yeah.
There's nothing else to gain. Best believe after they get to the point in the contract when the dead money hit is right, you will no longer be there. Your coach isn't going to be there much longer. You're like 1-11 against, I think, well, now 1-12, if I'm not mistaken, against teams with a winning record. Like, you're not like that. Like, take your money and run. They were silly for paying you the money. That has nothing to do with the injury. But I'm just saying, like, I mean, sometimes you gotta know when to hold them and when to fold them, and it's time for him to fold them, in my humble opinion. Just for health reasons, not even looking at the gameplay because
Agreed.
They thought you would get enough to pay you, but for health reasons, not. His mom need to step in. His mom need to have a conversation. He don't have a wife yet, I don't believe, but his mom need to have a sidebar conversation with him, like, son, what you doing? What are our goals and aspirations here? Another guy not having injury issues, but isn't necessarily looking close to what some of us thought he may look like. Actually, for me, he's pretty much looking exactly like I thought he would look. Caleb Williams, he looking real mid right now. He's look, I was telling everybody all off season that would listen, this guy ain't it for a myriad of reasons, and he's showing it. I'm not going to say it's all on him, but we knew what team he was going to when he got drafted. So for the people that were yelling his name and saying that he was going to be this, that, or the third, you knew what team he was on when you were saying that. And I don't see it. Like, if not for that defense, he wouldn't have a win on his record right now, humble opinion. So
he needs to send a thank you to Will Levis.
Look, that's a whole nother conversation with Levis. Levis, if he does, this is my inkling. This is I don't have any inside information, but if Will Levis has one more stupid fumble, not you fumbled or threw an interception while making a good play, but Buddy throws the ball backwards while being tackled with the other team all around the dudes you throwing it to. What are you thinking? Like, you don't even do that in high school. But yeah, that's another guy. These two quarterbacks, nah, I don't see. And I had high hopes for Will Levis this year. He might get benched before. If I'm the coach, I would rather have Mason Rudolph in there not making stupid mistakes than what Levis got going on, even though he has a higher ceiling as far as talent is concerned. But what y'all got on these two guys, man?
As far as Caleb Williams, I'm not ready to throw the towel in yet. This team hasn't been fully healthy. He hasn't had all the complementary weapons. He has shown some actual, he's shown some little glimpses here and there. I think the thing is the speed of the game is different. The running around and, buying time. You can't do that in this league. The linemen are running 4.4s and 4.5s. So I think the speed of the game he's got to get adjusted to. But I've seen some good throws. I've seen some rookie mistakes. It's still early. I'm not ready to throw the towel in on Caleb yet.
I just first want to say there needs to be a new show rule where everything I say, I get a young Vander voiceover. I would sound so much better if he just said it for me. New rule. But all joking aside, here's the thing. Caleb Williams, he's somebody who talks a great game and has plenty of confidence, but he can't back it up. And what I look for when I look at these quarterbacks, and look, it's the hardest thing. There's a lot of GMs have gotten fired over drafting quarterbacks, right? But here's my biggest issue with Caleb, and I agree with young Vander that it's way too early yet. But I guess a preliminary was I'm not surprised by what we're seeing. When Caleb Williams played against better defenses in college, Ohio State, Notre Dame, those kind of defenses, he was a charity at how often he turned the ball over. He was running for his life. Now, that's some offensive line issues, but running for his life, he struggles to read defenses against better defenses, and that's showing up. He's running around for his life. Players are bigger, faster, stronger. He can't run around and make things happen like he's used to in college. It's still too early. The judgment's still out, but he can't read a defense. And, I mean, his punter's getting worn out. Like they might need a punter every game for how often they're punting. Because, and as far as Levis goes, Zay, you and I don't disagree a lot, but I was not a fan of Levis. I didn't like what I saw last year. I'm even less impressed this year. It doesn't mean he can't turn it around, because the truth of the matter is he was one bad half away, or avoiding one bad half away of being 1-0 against the Bears. They looked really good for 2.5 quarters. So, is that still – I don't think he was as good as the first half against the Bears. I don't think he was as bad as the second half against the Bears, but I also don't think he's the answer.
So there's a team out there that has a ton of fans, and they're going to win the big game every year. And, yeah, they got their behinds handed to them in a fashion that I don't believe I have seen here as of late. But we them boys got beat 44-19 by the Saints.
Listen, I'm not surprised though.
Hey, but look, so I was going to say, what are you more surprised by? How good the Saints have been, or how bad Dallas looked in that game? I mean, Vander, I'm going to give you credit for something. I always end up doing so, but you know your football stuff. You said this offseason, if you know anything about OCs, you should know that the Kubiaks have a certain track record of bringing pop to an offense, and the running back is just on fire. If they aren't talented, when they are talented, such as Alvin Kamara, they're otherworldly. And that's what we're seeing from Alvin Kamara. We're seeing the handcuffs taken off of Derek Carr. I said for the last 2 years, Derek Carr is a lot better than what he has looked. And they're finally taking the handcuffs off of him in this offense. They've traditionally had a pretty good defense, but nobody saw this coming. They're undefeated, and they just went up against one of the premier defenses of the league and put up almost 50 points on them boys.
Right.
Are the Saints for real?
Yeah.
And is Dallas a joke?
Well, the thing is this, like usually I take it as this. When the 49ers play the Cowboys, it's usually a shellac, whatever you want to call it. And it's the same thing, same offense. Everybody think about, you always hear the name the Shanahans, the Kubiaks. It's the same thing.
Same tree.
You know what I'm saying? So
great point.
When he went over there, it's the same offense that you see the 49ers put. Remember, last time 49ers played the Cowboys, it was the same, pretty much the same thing. So New Orleans always had a solid defense. They just couldn't score some points. And I think he was, we've seen Carr being unlocked. I mean, we've seen Kubiak do well with Schaub a few years in Houston. He had some pretty decent years there with him. So maybe simplifying the offense a little bit. You know what I mean? People's ready to throw Carr away. But Kubek has, just resuscitated him now, and he's actually like the number one QB in fantasy with a lot of different metrics. I'm not sure as far as point score, but a lot of different metrics I'm seeing. He's the number one QB right now.
55 points in one of my leagues last week. Get bonus points, but still.
So I agree with young Vander here. He's spot on. I'll take it from a little bit different angle though. I know we're only 2 weeks in, but I think the consensus was because the Falcons went all in the offseason that they were the quote unquote, at least Vegas favorite to win the division. Right. We know the Panthers were going to be awful. No one really expected a lot from the Bucs. The Saints and the Falcons were kind of 1A and 1B in terms of teams that could win that division. I'm already willing to say, bar injury, the Saints are the team to beat. Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins. We know in big-time games he's going to struggle. That's what he does. I always joke he's 2 interceptions before the game even starts against good teams, and that's what usually happens. But let's talk about Dallas. Your front office is terrible. Haven't won anything since Jones has been owner. And you look at it since 95 was the last Super Bowl title, so almost 30 years next year. But you look at Mike McCarthy, like he literally needs to hire a guy who's played Madden so that he can game manage the last 2 minutes of halves in games, because he has no idea how to manage a game. And he's been in the league for like 2 decades. How can you suck for 2 decades? And then the other part of it is I know that you didn't like that Tua got paid, right, Zay? You questioned the contract and all the money. But here's the thing. Dak is the biggest head-scratching contract I've ever seen. The guy he wins 1 playoff game in 8 years. They crash and burn every year in the playoffs. And yet somehow that's the answer. You have a terrible head coach and a quarterback who doesn't win when it counts. Why does that make sense? What are we doing?
I'll tell you why it makes sense and who it makes sense to. It makes sense to Jerry Jones because he drafted him, was it in the 4th round or the 6th round? I want to say it was the 4th round. And he's the cherry on top of Jerry Jones Sunday. Jerry Jones loved himself some Jerry Jones. It's very rarely that he goes out and does anything as far as in the way of free agents. But because he is the GM, all the guys that he picks, they become buddies. And unless they ask for too much money and can't be replaced, a la Ezekiel Elliott, he even brought him back when he became a lot cheaper. So Jerry Jones likes the guys that he drafts. And the thing about it is, and not to go morbid, I don't know if Jerry Jones is going to be around long enough for a rookie quarterback to get him any closer than what Dak is getting him. Like I don't know if, and again, not to be more, the man's like 80-something years old. Like he's already past the average lifespan for a male in America. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, you don't have to worry about Jerry. Jerry is not going anywhere until he wins again. He has some things set up where even if he does die, they'll freeze his body, and then but when they're in the Super Bowl, they'll throw him out and he'll be back. So he's not going nowhere. I promise you.
You mentioned Carolina, man. At least Dallas isn't Carolina, because I don't know what type of saying that Carolina is a dumpster fire will be an insult to dumpster fires. This is where they are right now. Like after week 1, the owner decided he needed to have a one-on-one conversation with the coach because he wasn't happy with the direction of the team. Like he thought they was just gonna come out and be a barn burner from week 1, but then after week 2, you sit the guy that's only been in this new offense for a week, for a guy that's been in the NFL for, I don't know how long Andy Dalton's been in the NFL now, at least a decade, I would think. But what are we going to gain from this? Like, I don't understand the direction that Carolina's going in. I can tell you this, that wasn't a head coach move. That was an owner move. That was you've been told what to do. Now, if you want to keep your job, do this.
Well, I don't know because I mean the owner is the reason why they even drafted Bryce Young. From my understanding, he was a fan of Bryce Young at Alabama, and he's the reason why he's even there. I didn't understand. I mean, everybody, a lot of people saying now, looking back, Stroud was better, but yeah, he was better. He's not just better now; he was a better pick at that time. But from my understanding, they were saying the owner was a fan of Bryce Young, and that's the reason why they picked him. So for this to be an owner's decision, it's kind of strange going back
Well,
on.
here's the thing: the same way it was his decision to draft him, it's his decision to sit him down.
Yeah,
I mean,
but this is
that's what I'm seeing.
But this is also one of those situations where if you hire someone, let them do the job.
Facts.
Well,
He's trying to be another Jerry Jones at this point.
Exactly. I feel bad. I mean, as bad as I can feel bad for a millionaire, I feel bad for Bryce Young, right? Because he's in a terrible situation. And unfortunately for him, his career is going to be evaluated large in part to something outside of his control. His front office sucks. Tepper's a moron. He's had no good coaching. There's not many offensive weapons there. He doesn't have good line play. Like, there is nothing positive to say about how things are going there, but ultimately Young is going to be judged. But now, look, obviously you could say if he was that great, he would be able to overcome some of these deficiencies. But look, I don't know of anybody that's overcoming those deficiencies. Like, it's just a hot mess. You're already on your head coach after week 1. Then after week 2, your coach comes out and says, yeah, he's my QB1. The next day, he's your QB2. Like, what are we doing?
So here's my thing. And both of you are football savants. So I'm pretty sure one of you can answer this question. How many quarterbacks will come out of Alabama that have been worth much? If we don't look at Jalen Hurts, and I'll even put Tua Tagovailoa on the list of quarterbacks that are, decent that came out of Alabama that at least would have a starting job barring injury.
The big one's Joe Namath. The big one's Joe Namath.
How far you got to go back, right? Yeah, I mean, Alabama to me never was a quarterback, school. They usually it's kind of like game managers. They always have the great skill players. They usually build from the inside out. So their defensive line is always bigger than yours. The offensive line is always bigger than yours. They have a stud at running back. They're going to have an athletic wide receiver, and they're going to just have a quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over and make, move the chains on third down. McElroy, guys like that, Mac Jones. I mean, you talk about Hurts, but in my opinion, Hurts get more credit for going the Oklahoma route because he went to the quarterback guru. And because before he left Alabama, people were saying Hurts may be a wide receiver or don't be in the league at all. So he was able to go to Oklahoma, get that tutelage, and turn into a quarterback. So, Alabama never was a quarterback a spot for me. And I'm one of those people like, look,
so high.
He's a Heisman winner, and a lot of these GMs get this thing in their head where if your team needs a quarterback, just because you need a quarterback don't mean you need to take a quarterback. Sometimes you need to wait until the best or better one comes around.
And think about it like this, right? We know that in the NFL and all levels of football, games are won and lost in the trenches and the line of scrimmage, right? But if you, for a moment, just take that part away, the most important things beyond that are your head coach and your quarterback. And so you can't win anymore at high-level college football or in the NFL without a competent quarterback. And I'll think about it right now in the NFL. How many quarterbacks in the NFL would you actually say, if it was your team, you'd really want? And the answer is probably less than 10. So think about that.
I won't disagree with you. There's a lot of retreads out there. There are a lot of experiments out there. There aren't very many proven coaches. So I agree with you on that. Hey, Clemson, your boy Goldilocks sucks. He is 0-7 since week 12 of last year. And it's like his NFL career is following your current win-loss record in Clemson right now. I don't know what is going on with Trevor Lawrence. I feel worse for the Jags for paying him than I do for Miami for paying Tua. This guy, he just continues to regress. He has more weapons than most. He has a decent line. He has a decent coach. I don't understand why he isn't better than what he is. And for fantasy players out there, dynasty players out there, a lot of these quarterbacks, y'all were willing to move heaven and earth to make your first pick. Again, trade them picks. Get guaranteed guys. Because most of these guys end up washing out or not being worth their salt. But Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, I don't even think the Jaguars are going to end up in Jacksonville very much longer at this point. The only way that happens is if they get a stadium built and get a stadium built quick. If they do that, then they'll stay. Outside of that, I can see the owner and the team changing at some point in time in the near future, but they are not good. And they have no excuse.
Well, Jacksonville is one of those teams when they was talking about moving to Europe and all these different Mexico or whatever, this was the team that was going to do it. So it's possible that they probably would. But Trevor Lawrence is notorious for being a slow starter. I mean, even in games, he just starts slow and then, tends to get better as the game progresses. I think what you see is what you get. So if you think he's going to be this hot shot, probably not. He's probably just going to be just an average quarterback in this league as far as career.
I threw out his first year because he had Urban Meyer, and we know what a disaster that was. So I give him a pass on that because we like to say all the time, you can't fix stupid. So although I hear Urban might be, his name's been dabbled around with the Notre Dame coaching job with Marcus Freeman struggling over there. That's a story for a different day. But part of his struggles are, not discounting the 0 for 5 heading into this year that's now 0 for 7. But the Browns have a top 5 defense. So him struggling, the Browns have a lot of problems. Their defense isn't one of them. They're really good. So the fact that he struggled against an elite Browns defense doesn't surprise me. Struggling against Miami's defense is a little bit of a different issue. But to young Vander's point, he does get off to slow starts. And he actually has competent coaching. Peterson's won in the league. The guy knows what he's doing. I'm not saying he's, Bill Walsh or, Andy Reid or something, but the guy's won in the league. He's definitely not the Bears head coach. I'll say that.
BK, close your ears for just wait a minute. As a fact, BK and Young Vander, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, both Florida State fans. if I'm not mistaken.
Love the Nolan.
So.
Where's my paper bag?
Maybe this will just be a soliloquy because I don't want to hurt my friend's feelings, but your boy Mike Norville said you would be 0-3 as well if you went against the powerhouses that we've played for the first 3 weeks of the season.
What?
Those powerhouses that they played, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Memphis. Those are the powerhouses that you're supposed to be 0-3 against. Fire this dude. Fire this dude yesterday. If this is his response to losing to those teams, my goodness, what is it? You have no hope of getting to the playoffs. You definitely have no hope of winning the playoff games. If that's his attitude to losing to Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Memphis. Memphis is a powerhouse now all of a sudden. Memphis. What are we doing?
So here's the one thing. Coaches are known for doing this all the time. And look, make no mistake, for all of us here, that was ridiculous. We all know that was a lie, right? But I think what he was trying to do, if I read the tea leaves, is trying to take the pressure off of his team and his quarterback and put it on him. Stop focusing on how bad the team is and focus on him and how stupid the comment was, because now that's all they're talking about. You notice no one's talking about the team. They're all talking about how dumb that was. Now, look, it's ridiculous, and getting DJU, who sucks, was a terrible mistake. And the thing that, this is my end of my speech, the thing that's frustrating for me as a Knowles fan is, had Cam Ward not gotten bad advice to go test pros, Cam Ward would be a Knoll, and the Knowles would be running through the ACC. Unfortunately, the Knowles got impatient and got stuck with DJ I Suck You, who should have been benched in the first half of game 1. And now the Knowles are going to have it trying to struggle to make a bowl. I'm done.
The first half of your answer sound real fan-like, and then you got real towards the end.
Listen, man, where's Bobby Bowden when you need him? I think we made the mistake, honestly, when we didn't go after Deion Sanders in that coaching free agency, because at that time, I mean, him being a big alum, I know a lot of people don't like the circus that comes with him, but that circus would have had Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter attached to it. And if we had Shedeur Sanders at QB with that offensive line, with those skill players, with the best college football player in the league right now, Travis Hunter, we'd be talking about a whole different ball game right now. It'd be a lot easier for Deion to recruit, because Florida State pretty much recruits itself with as far as the history and things of that nature. So I think we made a mistake at that point with this whole process. And I mean, we're not getting our bang for our buck. Since NIL is around, we paid DJ, I don't know how much we paid him to come, but now we're seeing why Clemson shipped them off.
We need a refund.
He should be paying y'all at this point. You brought up Cam Ward. Right now, he's been hyped as the NFL's top prospect for quarterback over Shedeur Sanders, who was also aforementioned. I don't know. I feel like both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders have a lot of Caleb Williams, Bryce Young to them. Like,
no.
Situation more than, like, I don't think the talent gap is very much different between Caleb and Shedeur. And if you get picked first, I don't think the results are going to be very much different than what you're seeing with Caleb right now. It's going to take – the reason bad teams stay bad for a long time normally doesn't have to do with the talent on the team. It has to do not with the ingredients in the kitchen, but the chef that's cooking it. And if the chefs don't change, which that's few and far between, that your GMs and ownership changes, your front office, if that doesn't change, you can normally expect a little bit more of the same. Even with a guy who has the talent of a Justin Herbert. Without Harbaugh coming in, they'd probably lost these games that they won at this point. Like, it's to the point that you made a little bit ago, there are probably about 10 coaches in the NFL that you would actually prefer to have. Most of these guys are going to end up on a team with a coach and a front office that any veteran that had an option to do something else would not go that route. And unfortunately, most people don't have that Jordan Love type of situation to where you can actually sit back, learn the game, go from looking like a deer in headlights to looking like an MVP candidate, before the injury. And it hasn't been that long. He should be back this week. But most people don't have that much time. The NFL is very impatient at this point with its quarterbacks. And if they're put in the wrong situation, we see what the win-loss record will look like with Shedeur Sanders if he don't have the teammates around him. We're seeing it right now.
Shedeur, man, Shedeur throws one of the most beautiful balls I've seen.
I agree, but we see what the win-loss record is with the team that's around him.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but he's not playing with the talent that these other guys are playing with. They got skill guys, but as far as offensive line, we know this dude's like the most sacked quarterback last year.
And guess who's probably going to pick him? The New York Giants. Same stuff, different toilet.
Yay, but
think about it.
Yay, but because in NFL it's a lot closer as far as the talent. In college, the talent gap is huge. Benedict College would never be Alabama, ever. They can play 100 games and they're gonna get smoked 100 times in a row. So the gap in college as far as the talent is so much bigger and so much larger than the NFL. The worst team in NFL can beat the best team in NFL on any given Sunday. That would never happen in college football. So it's a little bit closer. I understand what you're saying as far as just having a bad offensive line in NFL, yeah, but it's a lot different in college than it is in NFL. Tell me.
Yeah, I think my take on this, at this point, I would say that Sanders is the better quarterback. He has the better skill set. Cam Ward, think about it like this. Is Cam Ward more the quarterback that we saw at Washington State, where he put up big numbers but was a turnover machine? Or is he the guy who went to Miami who's played a bunch of cupcakes so far? You played Florida, who's going to – their over-under was 4.5. Their coach is going to – remember when I told you BK best bets, Billy Napier, first coach, fired? I have sources telling me they've already ponied up the money for the buyout. That $27 million is ready to go. He's going to be gone. So, come on. And then last week, FAMU, literally us 3 and 8 friends could go on being 30-point favorites there. Look, I'm not trying to pee on the Cheerios of Cam Ward, but let's pump our brakes. Let's see Cam Ward play against a competent college team. Play Clemson, play Louisville, play Notre Dame, play somebody that's at least competent. Then let me see what it looks like. Not against these games that are just gimmies. Because to young Vander's point, right? Remember how some of these juggernaut college teams run through and go undefeated? Would Jacksonville, when they were bad in the pros, beat Alabama, who's loaded? Jacksonville, even being garbage, would kill every single college team. Why? Because the college team has maybe 15 guys going pro, and the NFL team has 50-some players going that are in the pros. It's never going to work. The point spreads for that in that fictional thing, 17, 20, 21, for a reason. The talent gap is just crazy.
And why are we skipping over Carson Beck and the kid Ewers from Texas? I mean, these are good quarterbacks as well. So for them to say Cam Ward is now like this big thing is kind of like people putting the carriage before the horse, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. And actually, he was the guy that I was going to Texas next. I was going to skip over Ewers myself, though. not as far as who the top prospects should be. But my question is Arch Manning. BK, what you just said about Cam Ward, should we apply the same logic to Arch Manning? Let's delay our evaluation and reserve the right to give a true opinion on him until or unless he actually plays somebody other than a high school. Because I don't even remember the name of the school they played against last week, but that was even a cupcake to the cupcakes. Now, he still ended up putting up numbers that were better than most quarterbacks would have. But is the hype train putting out of the station too fast? If Ewers is good to go next week, does he sit his behind back down on the bench? Where are we with Manning?
So for me, I think that it's always a fluid situation. I look at it more what happened in the offseason. It's telling to me that Ewers took that team to the playoffs last year. They lost a tough game against the Huskies. Then both quarterbacks still there in the offseason. Either one could have been the starter, and Sarkisian chose Ewers to continue. To me, that speaks volumes. I can pick either guy. I still kept him. That tells me as long as he can stay healthy, and that has been a problem for Ewers. Second year in a row he's got hurt early in the season. It's been an issue. But if he stays healthy, he's still the guy. Look, Arch was really impressive, but there's a reason why he's the backup. Young Vander, what do you think about that? You agree, disagree?
Hey, I didn't know watching Manning, I didn't know a white boy could move like that, boy. He was getting down the field. You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, is this Cam Manning? Or who is this?
He played pickleball.
Oh, man. Hey, Arch got some wheels. You know what I mean? But I'm with you. You know, this is Ewers' team. It's his job until, something else comes up. I think, they were just, bits and pieces of games they'd throw Archie, and I think they just want to just give him kind of, ready and give him a little real game action just in case Ewers does go down. They could probably just continue. It's not like a lost season or something, but it's the pedigree. I mean, he's a Manning. Everyone been successful in that family except for the other brother, the Cooper, the one that was the wide receiver, right? So, but yeah, I like Manning, man. I mean, I'm not sure what he's gonna do moving forward, but the knowledge. I mean, your uncles, like, you can't teach that. You know what I'm saying? So
the amount of tutelage that this guy has had from the time he was 2 years old,
unreal.
Between the amount of money that they have to hire professionals when his uncles aren't available, when his grandfather isn't available.
Right. The granddad was, in his time, he was Cam Ward for the Saints. He used to run around back in the day. So that's probably where he got the speed from. He did get it from his uncles. He got the speed from his granddad for sure.
Two teams that I think may be in trouble: Oklahoma, LSU. I know LSU won this past week against the Carolina Gamecocks. LSU was on the ropes until Carolina, till their quarterback got hurt. Sellers was abusing them boys. At one point in time, Carolina was up by 17 points. And I don't know that LSU is quite as good as Brian Kelly wants them to be or thinks they are. And they made it out of Carolina by the skin of their teeth. Oklahoma, I don't get good vibes from them. They feel like they're looking for something and they're hoping that someone who isn't on their team happens to appear and goes out there and rallies the troops because they look off. They look like they don't know what they're doing. These two teams, humble opinion, I can see a big fall off. LSU, humble opinion, had they not won this past week, that snowball effect, if you will, might have started this week. Maybe they right the ship after that close win. But how do you guys feel about Oklahoma and LSU? I just kind of feel like they aren't going to get it together.
I think LSU escaped. There was a pick six that Carolina got. They got called back. I think it was a bad call on that. So that would have ended the game right there. But these are just teams. I think people are holding on to the prestige of these universities.
Glory days.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not the LSU of the past. This is the Oklahoma of the past. They're going to be decent teams, but that's pretty much it. These are not like playoff teams that you're looking for, in my opinion. So I just think they're people just hold on to the past. When you hear the name Oklahoma, when you hear the name LSU, you're thinking of these powerhouses. But along with this NIL, different coaching changes, people have caught up, as you can see.
Yeah, I think for me, Oklahoma has the bigger challenge of the two, but I agree that they're both in trouble. So I'm never a fan of this. I call this the Ray Tanner Muschamp syndrome, where you unnecessarily extend a coach that you don't need to. In the offseason, they gave Venables an extension, and he's 16-10 at Oklahoma coming into this year. Terrible first year, really good second year. You look at their schedule, the next two, this year and next year, unlike Texas, who got a very SEC-friendly schedule this year, Oklahoma did not. And you look at Oklahoma's schedule, you look at what they have next year, it's even tougher. You're going to look back at the end of next year going like, I'm not sure how he's going to keep his job because he's already barely a 500 coach. It's only going to get worse. And they struggled 2 weeks ago against Houston. They were almost a 30-point favorite. They won 16-12. The two teams combined didn't even hit 30 combined. They didn't look great last week. They have a tough game this week against Tennessee, who's been rolling. and the schedule's only going to get harder the rest of the year. So Oklahoma's in trouble. LSU, I think. I know a lot of Carolina fans want to complain and bemoan about the officiating, right? And do I think I watched the game twice, and I will tell you that do I agree that the officials missed some very obvious calls that may have influenced the game? For sure. Absolutely. But you can't blow a 17-0 lead and a 24-10 lead at home against a mediocre team. And Zay, young Vander hasn't heard me say this. You've heard me say this. It's absolutely asinine that we have college football rankings before October 1st. If you were to fast forward to October 1st, neither Oklahoma or LSU would be ranked. They're not worthy of being a top 25 team, and that's what we've seen. So they don't belong there, and the season's going to play off. I guarantee you neither team will finish ranked.
In that
I agree. I agree with BK wholeheartedly. And real quick, I think we're going to look back on this thing and say, what were we thinking, Oklahoma? That's what I think they're going to say why did you even want to invite to the SEC anyway? Just stay in that conference and do whatever or go somewhere else. Like, I think they're learning, like, they probably bit off a little more than they can chew when it comes to the SEC football. Like, I get it, money, different things like that. Maybe going into somebody else's backyard as far as recruits and getting some of those kids, but I didn't think it was a good idea for these Texas and some of these teams out of the Big 12 to come to the SEC. I didn't think that was a good idea.
We see Texas is doing their thing, but Oklahoma ain't it.
But Texas, I mean, now that NIL is back, that's that oil money down there, baby.
That money, baby.
You don't have to worry about them. They're going to be all right.
Oklahoma could have stayed in the Big 12. They could have went out to the Pac-12, and we would have still thought that they were good. In the SEC,
right?
You a mid-major. That's essentially what you are in the SEC. But I think they were trying to get ahead of the power curve of the rumored super conferences, and they wanted to get into their preferred conference before they weren't going to be able to get in. But I don't think that's going to work out well for them.
I think the real story is Texas, because, I mean, this all but came out, right? Texas wanted to make the move, and they dragged Oklahoma with them. They said, you're coming with us. That's literally what happened. Yep. So, Texas made that decision for both schools. I've not heard anything to contradict that.
And that pretty much wraps it up for this evening. Hey, we have 3 shows a week. They're going to be available to you on the podcast apps. They're going to be available to you on video on Facebook, and they're going to be available to you on YouTube. For YouTube, it's at The Gospel STP. Again, for YouTube, at The Gospel STP. For Facebook, The Gospel Sports Truth Facebook group. We're going to have Wednesday weekly recaps. We're going to have Thursday Fantasy Football Truth, and Friday The Gospel Sports Truth. Make sure that you catch every show on your desired app or website. We'll kind of go from there. But it has been a pleasure bringing to you the first Wednesday show with the weekly recap. We'll see you tomorrow with the fantasy show and on Friday with the Gospel Sports Truth. But for tonight, we out. And remember, tell the truth.
And nothing but the truth.